Díogwits tá fáilte rót. Is Mr. John Gavin o Leavingcertirish.com. Hello and welcome. My name is John Gavin from Leavingcertirish.com, and now we're going to take a look at today's paper 2 from the higher level examination in Irish in the 2016 Leaving Certificate. So most people would have had a very good day yesterday, but today's paper was certainly a lot more challenging. There was a lot of things in it that would have definitely caused a lot of people to spend quite a bit of time on certain sections, and I think that I'll start with the area that probably caused most difficulty. I believe that the topic of the Olympics was something that everyone expected to perhaps be writing about yesterday, but today you found yourself reading about it. But it was more the historical context of the Olympics, and the title, The Olympic Games, Principles and Controversies, was not maybe what people would have expected to be working with. With most reading comprehensions, it's always down to the questions, and I think some of the questions here were quite challenging. And if I go down to the question 6a, which a lot of students who are perhaps viewing this video would like to know the answers to. First of all, in question 6a, it said locate a noun in the Tishiginuk, plural, and that was very important. So it had to be in the Tishiginuk plural in article or in paragraph 1, and an example of a verb that is in the Mokaniluk in Alta 3. So let's just look at those first of all. So if we go up to Alta Hain, you had to find a noun in the Tishiginuk plural, and the one that you were looking for was actually Durnálíocht Naman. Now crucially, the phrase Naman was what you were looking for. So this is what it is, and that means women's boxing. So that's in the Tishil Ginaduk plural, and it's in article or Alta Hain in paragraph 1. Then we also had to look at paragraph number 3, and we had to find a verb that was in the Mokaniluk. And in this case, it wasn't maybe as obvious as some people might have expected. It wasn't something like churhin or something like that. It was a bit more concealed than that, and the verb you were looking for was here gumwinhoch, Hitler. So that Hitler and the Nazis would make political use of something was the phrase. So that they would gumwinhoch. So that's the question 6a, dealt with in that reading comprehension. That will help some people. The remainder of the questions I certainly would have said were quite challenging. I think more than anything else, the actual piece itself had a lot of technical language in it. So there was nothing that was really untoward. It was a challenging paper, but one that, again, if you had plenty of experience, I think you would have had a good shot at this. Then if we take a look at the second reading comprehension, Ahru Eroide, 5 Vor or Linne, climate change, the major problem of our times. I think most of you would have seen this in the course of the last 2 years, or over the course of the last 2 years, because this is something that a lot of you would have obviously studied from a written perspective. So I would have been quite happy with that. Now, one phrase I know a lot of people definitely would have been wondering about is this one up here. Tuairim idirnáisiúnta. Idirnáisiúnta you would know, but tuairim are delegates. So that was an important phrase to have figured out at some level, because it came up in a question later on. So we're going to just take a look at the question 6a again here, because this is what a lot of you like to know immediately after exam. So Aimsig sampla den bhríthir séir, find or locate an example of the free verb in the Aimsig láithreach in Alta Hain in paragraph 1, agus sampla d'anamachal buiniscinach sa Tishiginuk uha in Alta Cuig, and an example of the Tishiginuk singular with a feminine noun in Alta Cuig. So let's very quickly just go back up, scroll up along here and find these, because as I say, a lot of you like to find these or know what these are in the aftermath of the examination. So the first one was captor. It is thought, and that was up here. It was in the 5th line, I think it was. Captor gemeg umlan an vachra lekar sanartuk láta fui lár na híse seo. So captor, it is thought. So that's the bríor séir Aimsir láithreach. And then the second one was the anamnachal buiniscinach in the Tishiginuk uha in Alta Cuig. So if we go down to that, that was sláinte na crinne is what we're looking for. And again, not maybe as obvious as some of you would have thought. You had to do a bit of work here, but the phrase is a feminine noun on Rinné. So the health of the globe, and the phrase was na Rinné. That was the one that you should have been writing down. So Rinné. So those are the questions and some answers on the 6A's. Then if we take a look very quickly at the prose. Well, the prose now, I think a lot of you would have preferred if Oisín na Díreach na nÓg didn't appear. I think a lot of people just don't like the story. However, I don't think that the questions were that challenging, and if you knew your basic information, it was quite okay. So the first one was maidir leis an scéal béilidis Oisín na Díreach na nÓg in relation to this folklore story Oisín na Díreach na nÓg. Then phlé garid ar do rogha. Briefly discuss your choice of two of the following. So you had a choice, and the first one is an léiriú aimíd Oisín mar gona grábhar dílis sa scéal. The portrayal we get of Oisín as a person who is loving and loyal in the story. And the second question, an forta glachan Pádraig Néfa sa scéal, the part that St. Patrick plays in the story. And finally, scríbhsis gá hampla den ábhail. Can you write down two examples of exaggeration in the story and briefly discuss both of them? So I think most people would have done question parts 1 and 3. They were the ones you were maybe best prepared for. So that was pretty okay. I wouldn't have had any major issues with that. An Tarach here was, you know, a very popular poem for people, I'm sure. The first two questions, you had to answer all three questions here, obviously, but the first two questions were very, very fair. Cad é príomhfhéime an dáin, or cad é an príomhfhéime sa dáin? What is the main theme in the poem An Tarach here? Discuss the imagery that the poet uses part of the portrayal of that main theme. The second one was cad é mothúch an slódra? What is the strongest emotion that is portrayed by the poet in the poem? I think that's very, very fair. And you only had to give 1 point of information as support with your answer. Now, the last question definitely may have been the one that upset a few people. Úsáideann an Phléigh galore adjectiví sadan. The poet used a lot of adjectives in the poem. Select two of those adjectives and briefly discuss the importance associated with them in your opinion. So that certainly would have challenged a few of you. It's not a question we would have seen a lot of in the past. But again, if you'd known your information, you had done a bit of work, I think you would have done pretty okay. So that was questions 1, 2 and 3, and then finally down to the prose text breise, or a literature freise as we call it. The questions for an trial and a hignot titarm, they're the two most popular options for students, and I'm just going to focus on those for a moment. I think the questions were very fair. The translation of the question on trial is the one I just want to focus on, the second part. Then phlé an ginál síl a bhí rihmhóra an oíche sin. This is important that you understood what section of the drama that you had to focus on. So just here, it was important that you did focus on an ginál síl. Discuss the type of life a bhí rihmhóra that Mora faced on oíche sin araigh, from that night on. Now the danger here, of course, is that some people may have misread this and may have said something like an cinál síl a bhí rihmhóra. They may have mixed it up and said the kind of life that Mora had before that night, and you had to make the connection of rihmhóra before Mora on oíche sin araigh, from that night on. And that was an important distinction that, you know, again, it emphasizes the importance of translating the questions. So briefly discuss the type of life that faced Mora from that night on, agus an gcuireann sí an lech leis an saol, and the way that she tackled life. And again, I'd be disappointed if a good honour student didn't understand what the term dul lech means, but how she handled it. So an sí an lech, chuig sí an lech le, she tackled, she dealt with her life from that point on. And the second question on a hignot titarm, which again is very popular, tug an mbeadh cúntas anna tanmhach doin an tréimhse chaise I gceart scoil an dain agus ar haran na blina mionige 58 in a year bheitha snéis a hignot titarm. So Mike Danning gives a very enjoyable account of the time he spent in school in Danning. That again would be a very, very standard question, very workable for everyone involved. None of the other questions were in any way, I thought, challenging on the other texts. I think they all would have been fine. For those of you who studied the Dáanta Breise, Cuoine Artí Léire, probably the one poem you didn't want to see, but again, the questions were very fair. So overall, this paper I think was a very challenging paper, would have taken you the full length of time to complete the task. But between the two papers, paper 1, paper 2, your clustishkent, I think you've had a fairly good balance, and you should be happy now that the exam is over. You've done your best, and hopefully you're going to get the reward that you deserve. Gur míle mágat, I'm John Gavin from Leavingcertirish.com, and this video has been produced in association with the Irish Times.